Grateful for the presence of everyone this evening. This is my opportunity to tell you about the most recent trip that I made. It involved the countries of Croatia and Albania, which when I heard of them, I had to look on the map to see where they were. I have some friends in Alabama, and the congregation where they attend support the work in Albania. So they had been forwarding to me the newsletter from that work, and I had a chance to hear about it and learn about it, and gratefully had an opportunity to visit there. Greece and Hungary, maybe we're more familiar where they are. As I usually do, I want to start by thanking you. You all have been so supportive of the many trips that I have made over the past almost 10 years now. And not just the financial support, but the encouragement and the interest that you have in my opportunities to share the gospel, probably more often encouraging congregations than having opportunities to preach to very many non-Christians, although on this particular trip I did. So sincerely, I thank you all for that. First part of my journey was from Houston to Amsterdam, and there I met up with this guy, the preacher in Vilnius in Lithuania, and met him a couple of years ago on a journey, and then last year he went with me. In fact, he helped set up the appointments for us to preach and encourage in Warsaw, in Prague, in Vienna, and he was such a help to me and such an encouragement to the people. It's kind of an interesting combination. You've got a Lithuanian and a Texan traveling around to encourage people, and they seem to be very encouraged by that. So he joined me on this journey, and we met up part of the way there. We're able to share the last leg of the flight together down to Croatia. Croatia, so many of those old cities. I'm always impressed by the big open squares and how often the people seem to assemble there. I think that was probably something that was a part of our history in the past, and I think we've lost it, and I think we lost something important. These countries, if I haven't heard of it, maybe I think of it as a third world country. It's not true. And I noted here, this particular country in Zagreb, it had the most improved, at least in some category, airport in Europe. So some of these have very good facilities for getting there and getting back. And again, the structures that they have just are so different than what we have here, it becomes very fascinating. In Zagreb, as I made the arrangements for the trip, there was not an opportunity to teach midweek, which is when I arrived there. But the preacher there agreed to take me to a congregation about an hour away, and in fact, after getting there, he served as my translator. Very good group, it was very interesting. I want you to notice, you see the square there? You see that structure right there? I was intrigued by that. That's their baptistry. And you see pictures of it on the left. And let me assure you, the baptistry is big enough for immersion. But rather than dipping somebody backwards, I guess they get in there and kind of squat down. It really, I could see in a lot of cases it would be easier to do. This was modeled after a baptistry that had been around since 800. Now, two things I thought were intriguing. I thought it was kind of intriguing that they captured that bit of history to have it. But if that baptistry, clearly set up for immersion, not sprinkling, not pouring, was around in the 800s, there's a little bit of history that tells us that baptism by immersion was still being practiced in that era. In almost all the places I visited on this trip, it seemed like the time that I got there was a particularly good time. The time that I was there Wednesday night to preach, they were having a barbecue to celebrate the baptism of this man right here. And they had very nice facilities, fireplace for the barbecue. I didn't take the picture. This was several weeks earlier when he was baptized, but I was intrigued. He was baptized in one of the area of the sea around there, and instead it was so rough, it took two people to hold him down for the baptism. But what I really liked was the story that they told about him. His daughter was converted through one of their programs that they have of teaching English. They combine teaching English and teaching the Bible. Many times they'll take a book or a chapter or a story in the Bible, and they use that to learn English. And of course, they teach them the gospel. Well, as you can see there, the daughter was baptized, and then her mother was baptized. And then this man, which is her father, was baptized. And as of the time that I was there, the daughter was also working on her boyfriend, to try to convert him, convince him to become a Christian. I believe that it should be that every new convert is indeed a doorway into a whole new community. I mean, we become Christians sometimes earlier in our lives, and we talk to our relatives, and some are interested and some are not. And we kind of exhaust that avenue. So where do we find the new contacts? Sometimes we can find them in the neighborhood. Sometimes we can find them by some sort of outreach. But when we find one, it should be that is a doorway into several other prospects. So I thought it was first I thought it was really neat that since they were having a barbecue, they had a Texan there. That just seemed kind of appropriate to me and somehow. But the barbecue was very good, and really enjoyed being there when they were making a special effort to recognize somebody who'd been baptized, and I guess the whole family had been baptized as part of that. From Croatia, I had to get to Albania. And what I learned about Albania is parts of Albania are not easy to get to. The place that I went in Albania, I don't think there's an airport within 2 or 3 hours of there. So in my route of getting there, I actually went in through Macedonia. I flew into Macedonia and to Skopje. And again, I don't want to make this into a travel log, but those old cities, if you wait until the evening when they are lit up, they're pretty in the daytime, but they are impressive at night. This is one of those big old open square areas. And of course, most of them have kind of an open market or a night market of some kind, which are interesting. What was interesting to me was the coins that were there. And if you know just a few characters of Greek, you can almost figure out some of this. It's kind of almost a Cyrillic kind of alphabet. But if you can see the letters there, there's the delta. It's the dinar and the 2 denarii. And when I saw that, I thought, that sounds familiar to me. What I was remembering was in the Bible, what was the Roman coinage? The denarius. Now, I tried to find some legitimate link between these coins and the denarius. It may be just in the dinar, there's a kind of a prefix meaning 10. But I thought they're in Macedonia. Some things, maybe they are somewhat the same. But I got to there, and then it was like a 2 or 3 hour drive over to the place I was schooling in Albania. But again, the timing was so good. We got there on a Friday. It was game night. And that was just very enjoyable. Reminded, me, I guess, of the times that we've had game night here. It's just a good opportunity maybe to meet some of the other family members on a less formal, less scheduled basis. But a very good group of Christians. They have a wide age group of Christians there, broad range of ages. And it was just fun to be there as a part of that. Had an opportunity to preach to them the next morning. This is Albert Cheppy. He is the preacher there. I'll show you a picture of his family a little bit later. But a good group of people that were there, enjoyed that very much. And again, I just happened to be there. Uosis and I happened to be there on the day that they had their periodic picnic. So they went out to this beautiful lake area, and the congregation there had a picnic. Enjoyed that very much. Before we left, had one final meal with the preacher and his family. And I tell you, I believe the place is blessed indeed to have this family there. This is the preacher, Albert. That's his wife, Georgiana. This is me and Yosef over there. This is the preacher's sister. Her name is Bona or Valbona, and she's pursuing some academic courses. But the more I talk to her, that woman's interest is in teaching young people, teaching children, teaching ladies, and of course I thought about Jennifer. And then on the picnic, she was running around everywhere taking pictures, so I thought about Jennifer. So I have gotten those two people in touch with one another. I think she would like to do, this woman, Valbona, I think she would like to do some of the things that Jennifer does, and I have agreed to try to sort of help them get together so that maybe with a little additional mentoring, she'll be able to do that. But a great family, just the church there is blessed to have them as a part of it. So that was Albania. Now, when I got to Albania, people begin to say things like, well, of course, the Apostle Paul came through here. Well, no, I didn't. I thought in Macedonia, I might find some places that the Apostle Paul really found very little. In Greece, of course, I did. but Albania and even Croatia. And what they said was, well, there's that reference to Illyricum. Well, this is a map and this is Illyricum. And during the times of the Apostle Paul, and not exactly, but I tried to kind of give the general oval shape here of Illyricum. And you see the red country of Croatia, how much that covered? Even a little bit of Albania. So I didn't know that, but there may indeed be paths of the Apostle Paul there. In fact, somewhere further north in Croatia than I went to is a bridge that they call Paul's Bridge. It was on the main road over from what we would call Istanbul across the country. So it was interesting. So there was some awareness there of Paul. I didn't know that. I was thought in Macedonia and in Greece there might be some footsteps of the Apostle Paul. I wasn't thinking about Albania and Croatia. So, began to move on into Greece. Going down to Athens was my next stop. But again, it wasn't necessarily that easy to get there. So coming out of Albania, went by car over to Thessalonica. And about the only place in that area that I could find footsteps of the Apostle Paul, if you will, I did find, it wasn't easy to find, Bavaria. That's the ancient city of Berea. So I looked for things there that might have some symbolism. All I could find was this. This is a monument that was erected in honor of Paul's visit there, I guess, 2,000 years earlier. And you see on the side here, there's Paul standing on some steps of some kind. Well, I think they're intending for these pieces of rock here to be those steps on which the Apostle Paul was. I really don't think you could ever place, not 100%, maybe not 80% confidence in some of those connections that they made. But I was in Berea. Somewhere around there the Apostle Paul would have been. When we got on over to Thessalonica, that was interesting. This was on one of the streets. This was the street sign. And if you recognize at least the shape of some of the Greek characters, I don't know much Greek, but I knew enough that this is an omicron and a delta and an omicron and a sigma. That's the Hadas. That's the way. Second book of our Bible is named for the Greek translation, Exodus. Ek is out, Hadas is way. So I did recognize that, the way. So this was the Ignatian way. A guy built it in the back before Christ. And this was the main route from what we would call Istanbul now across Thessalonica and then and back beyond that. So this was probably the path. This may have very well been the path along which the Apostle Paul went. You want to know what it looks like now? I don't think he would recognize it. It looks a little bit different today. But from there, again, getting to Thessalonica, and from there took the train on down to Athens, and it was not my most interesting train ride. This is Yosef. He's there watching a movie on his laptop. The three seats over here, and there's an aisleway here. I thought when I got us seats on this side of the train, I was going to be able to see out and take pictures. They fooled us. Maybe I should have checked with the train expert. But it got us down to Athens, and of course, extremely historic city. Those of you who saw my Facebook post, there's the Starbucks coffee. I don't drink the coffee, but I collect the mugs. Look what's sitting back there on the hill behind it. That's the Acropolis. That's the Parthenon, sitting in the background of the Starbucks coffee shop. And of course, when I made that post, several people made comments like, well, yeah, I knew Paul was a coffee drinker. And the other place I tracked down is the Hard Rock Cafe, because it's good, American tasting food, and I know it's going to be fine. This was the scene. You just walk around the corner from the Hard Rock Cafe, and this is what you see. And these scenes are impressive in the daytime. They're absolutely impressive at night. The whole Acropolis is lit up. Parthenon is lit up. And this is just a couple of pillars that were left over from some other building about that time. But I was fascinated by that. Of course, I had to go up and see the Parthenon. This is the Acropolis and Parthenon from a hill that is higher than the Acropolis. But the thing that I found the most interesting, that big rock-looking thing, that is Mars Hill. So I definitely wanted to go there because that is the place that we know Paul was either on it or he was close enough he could hear the people who were teaching off of it. So I couldn't resist having my picture taken there on Morris Hill. It's slick. It's just, I guess, warm that people are crawling all over it for a couple of thousand years. But it was intriguing to walk around that area knowing that that was one of the areas that we for sure know that the Apostle Paul was teaching. So I did have an opportunity to teach. And many times when I correspond with these people, sometimes they're not real specific about what kind of opportunity I'm going to have. Sometimes I just have to be a little bit trusting. In fact, I kept asking them because the time that they settled on for me to come and meet with some of the Christians there was not a time that was listed on their website that they had an assembly. And the man finally said, "Oh, we just arranged a special gathering for you to talk to." The special gathering was people from Iran. First, I had about an hour to talk to these people here from Iran, all Farsi-speaking people. This is Ibrahim. This is Arash. And this guy's name sounded sort of like Alavu. Everybody just called him I love you, because that's what it sounded so much like. But he was my translator, and the person who arranged things for me there, for us, Joseph was there too. As he introduced me, he talked about my scientific background, about the physics background, and they seemed to really key on that. And I thought, this is kind of neat, because these are people who have had to, at some point over the past few years, all of these people had been out of Iran only 2 or 3 years. And they were all Christians. They'd either been converted there in Athens or in some place not too far away. But they had to face up to the question of, how am I going to give any credibility to this biblical, to the Bible, to the Scriptures? And so I talked about some of the things that were in the Scriptures that I thought were very convincing to me. A delightful conversation with them for about an hour. And then there were some additional people there. So that particular night I had an opportunity to preach my faith, love, and hope sermon to about 15 of them. And it was just a delight. After that, somebody went and got food. And, here's just a very short excerpt. In fact, it's more of a scripture reading than a part of my preaching. But I thought you might like to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ in the Farsi language. And they sang later, and I kind of had trouble getting a good recording of the singing, but I've heard that language before. I've heard the Arabic languages, but they most often are in some sort of chant, prayer chant that you visit at various places. It was just overwhelming to me to listen to them sing in that chant kind of language and know that they were singing Christian hymns. I just thought that was amazing. Had a lot of wonderful experiences in my travel. That was one of the genuine goosebump occasions. As one person said, Joseph, who was there with me, he said, "Stan, it was like for that time that evening, somebody just picked us up and dropped us down in Iran. And we were in Iran for 3 hours because we were among people who were from Iran, only Farsi-speaking people, except for a couple who spoke some English. It was just an amazing experience. But then we all got together to eat. And I've done this in a number of different countries, and every time it's just some kind of overwhelmed with the immediate camaraderie that you feel with fellow Christians and the warmth of fellowship that you have. I don't know whether I was concerned would it really be the same with these people from Iran. Well, we're all eating together, and somebody took the camera and just focused it on each person. Listen to the joy that we have for being together. It was just amazing to me, the warmth and fellowship, and got almost even better from that. The preacher there had been planning to take some of them down to Corinth, ancient Corinth, about an hour drive away. And I had asked about, can I find some sort of tour down in Corinth? It was difficult to find. They were only like Monday and Friday, and I wasn't there Monday and Friday. So the preacher decided he would take them down while we were there. So the next day, we all hopped in the van and went down to ancient Corinth, and there we are eating together. And just off of that edge right there, if you look over that edge, it is ancient Corinth. I'll show you a video in a minute. And there we are all looking around, and this is our Rosh that has that fine-looking hat. And I actually got to borrow that hat for at least a few minutes. So wasn't sure he would swap with me permanently. But a young man, a third my age from Iran, fellowship that we have through the blood of Christ, it's just overcomes all age barriers, all geographical barriers. It was an amazing experience for me. And looking off that edge, there are the ruins of ancient Corinth. That is one of the main streets of the city of Corinth. Now, if you're there and you look, they dug down probably, 20 or 30 feet to get down to this level. But you'll see it here, and especially on the other side. Oh, there it goes, the video. These areas here are the rock dividers where they would have had their shops along the main street of Corinth. And that would have been a place that almost certainly the Apostle Paul would have walked. And I got to thinking about it, and I thought, I think I want to walk where the Apostle Paul walked. Now that's just, some of the other places, maybe he was there, maybe he wasn't there. Almost certainly he was there. Just all kind of overwhelming. From there we headed on to Hungary, flew into Budapest. That's the Danube River. Again, the buildings are just beautiful in that part of the world with the historic architecture. They're nice in the daytime, but at night they are absolutely amazing. But from Budapest, again, I wound up taking trains quite a bit. It was an hour, 2 hours over further to Debrecen where we were going. We arrived at the train station, and the preacher, they actually walked to the train station to get us, and we walked to a restaurant to be together. And the preacher is this guy right here, Nandor, and this is his wife, and those are his kids. This is Yusuf. This guy right here is Sandor. He came over the border for about an hour or so from where did he come from? From Romania. And I thought that was very nice. He came over, in fact, he wound up translating for me. I think I will probably try to go see him at his home congregation at some point. So anyhow, we had our food fellowship to start out with, and some of these places, I'll just warn you, if you go, they're going to work you. They're going to keep you busy. So they had me starting at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. They had an advanced English class, so I could speak to them in English. But again, it was based on the scriptures. And the scriptural passage they were covering was about the burial of Jesus, the tomb of Jesus. And there are so many points that are fundamental to Christianity, of course, that you can make in that story. And what I found, they weren't all Christians. Some of them came for the English class, they didn't even stay for the worship service. Opportunity. Let them know something about the Bible and how to piece together the stories in the Bible and how credible, very credible the Bible is. Amen. And you can see I was explaining to them about the Bible is not a book. I think one of the greatest barriers to people understanding the Bible is they think of it as a book. And it's not. It's 66 books. You see I got the 39 here and the 4 that were about the life of Christ, and then the others that are here. And we were looking in the book of Mark, so that was the second one. So I had an opportunity to explain to them about that. I talked to them about some of the prophecies about Isaiah and how those had come true. And they had told me ahead of time that there were some agnostics that were a part of the congregation. So I guess I kind of had that in the back of my head. But after teaching an hour of the Bible class, had an opportunity to preach. And again, this is Sandor from Romania, who was providing the translation for me. And it's not all the groups that were there. Did I mention that when I came to it? Maybe I didn't. You see this guy right here? You know Joseph Lipscomb, who was a part of the congregation for a long time and comes back and visits us about every 6 months. Some of you certainly remember. Joseph is the one that introduced me to the opportunity to go to Colombia. He's the one that told me about Debrecen here in Hungary. And as it turned out, our calendars were kind of synchronized, and he was going to be there for a couple of months teaching English and working on his academic courses remotely. But it was very good to see Joseph again. I think there's a better picture of him. Yeah, this is Joseph here. Oh, and then after the Bible class at 10 and after the sermon, I answered questions until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I tell you, these people in other countries, they are eager to learn. They are eager to have somebody help them connect the dots to piece together the scriptures. So we answered questions until 2. And there's Joseph Lipscomb. Maybe you'll recognize him better in that picture. These two people here. This woman, I didn't know it at the time, but she was not a Christian. So after I left, they told me that later that day she was baptized. And I don't know that, not that the lesson that I preached was about the plan of salvation, but what they seemed to explain was, I think she was favorably impressed or had a favorable influence on her, just the camaraderie of everybody. And of course we were. We were talking about some of the reasons that we believe in the Bible and why the Bible is true. You see this guy right here? During the question and answer period, he really wasn't volunteering very much. But, I kept kind of looking at him and I said, well, you look like you might have a question. You have a question. Finally, he began to talk. And he did not talk very long until I realized this is one of the agnostics. And so, in the context of the class, we talked a little bit, and I made some points of why I thought the Bible was historically credible. And he brought up a couple of other points, and I said, well, those are interesting points, but those don't really in any way diminish the points that I've made about historical accuracy of the Bible. But he was very pleasant conversation. Not until it was all over with that I found out this man is the father of the preacher that's there. Imagine being a preacher in a location and your father, who is an agnostic, attends. I guess that's good. At least he's there. He's having an opportunity to be exposed. Well, he had some exposure that particular day. I thought maybe you'd like to listen to some singing in Hungarian. About, to me, it's just intriguing to hear the same gospel message in the form of hymns and songs and spiritual songs sung in so many different countries. And then we all got together to eat one more time. There's Joseph. Maybe you recognize him better there. There is the preacher. That's his kids. His wife's down there. There I am. There's the guy from Romania. I hope to go back and see him at some point. So a very good, I don't know what time it was by the time that we left there. Started at 10 in the morning, had 6 or 7 hours of teaching and preaching and fellowship with them. So, thank you all again. You all have been an encouragement to me. You have sustained my interest. You have sustained my strength to make some of these journeys. And I truly believe, and one reason I wanted to take you also again, I really think when you come from a ways away and you visit these people, I think they are encouraged by that. They're encouraged by finding a like-minded person from so far away that teaches the gospel just like they do. And they're glad that somebody from so far away is interested enough in them to come see them. So thank you all. Thank you very much. And of course, the Bible stories that we teach are the same. And when we preach, we give the invitation. The invitation is the same. It's the same story. Many people understand that Jesus came to this world to make salvation available. The dots that they fail to connect is that if you want the salvation that Christ made available, then you need to follow his teachings. You need to believe in God. You need to believe in him. You need to be willing to confess him for who he is. He's the Savior. He's the Lord. He's the Christ. He's the Son of God. And then he says we need to be baptized. And he connects that. He connects baptism with salvation. So if there's some here tonight, some who've been attending here for a while, some who are visiting here, if you're not sure that you've ever really obeyed the Bible's plan for salvation, talk to some of us afterwards. If you're not sure, we'll sit down with you and show you some scriptures. If you're sure that you know, don't delay any further. Do it tonight. And we would be glad to help you if you'll come forward as we sing.